Hi, right, we're going to have a look at the heart, the lungs and blood vessels. So starting here, we've got a diagram showing how blood is pumped through the heart, first to the lungs to pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide, and then to the body to drop off the oxygen to the cells of the body, and then back to the heart to be pumped back to the lungs to pick up more oxygen. So starting with the vena cava, deoxygenated blood, so blood which no longer has a high level of oxygen in it but does have a high level of carbon dioxide, arrives at the heart, goes through the right atrium, the right ventricle, out through the pulmonary artery, travels to the lungs, picks up oxygen and drops off carbon dioxide through the process of diffusion. So particles moving from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So then once the blood has been oxygenated at the lungs, it travels back to the heart via the pulmonary vein, arrives at the left atrium, through to the left ventricle, and then out through the aorta to the systems of the body. So that's the whole body. All cells will need some oxygen in order to undergo cellular respiration and produce energy. So here, the blood goes from being oxygenated to being deoxygenated as it's dropped off its oxygen. And of course, it's picked up carbon dioxide, the waste product of cellular respiration, on the way. So the blood then travels back to the heart and again arrives at the heart through the main vena cava. So you might like to print that out and colour it in. So having red for oxygenated, which would start here where the blood has picked up oxygen all the way to here, etc. And then go blue here where the blood will be dropped off. The oxygen will be dropped off in cells of the body. So this is a picture of the exterior of the heart. It's unlikely you would need to label one like that, but it does show the coronary arteries and veins here, which when we look at coronary heart disease, they'll be relevant then. So here we have some blood vessels, an artery, a vein and a capillary. The artery, you'll notice, has a thick wall and a small lumen. Lumen just means the hole within a tube, so the bit in the middle of a tube. The artery has a small lumen and a thick outer wall made up of muscles and elastic fibres. As the blood within the artery has left the heart, it's under high pressure. So this needs to have this stretch and this thick wall in order to prevent the blood bursting out. Compare this with the vein, which has a thin layer of muscle and elastic fibres and a larger lumen. The blood within the vein is not under high pressure, and so it does not require this thick layer. At the bottom, we've got a capillary, which has a very small lumen, and on the outside, just a single layer of cells. So this allows substances, particles to diffuse in and out of the capillary to get into the blood cells. Importantly, veins have valves. So valves allow movement of substances just one way, preventing backflow. So this helps the blood get back to the heart as the blood within the veins is not at high pressure as it is in the arteries. Interesting picture. So here we've got a diagram of a heart, the kind of diagram you would be expected to label in your exam. So we've got here, as mentioned in the first diagram, we've got the vena cava. This is where it arrives at the heart. We've got it arriving, going into the right atrium. Notice the sides are the wrong way round. Imagine if you labelled a picture in front of you, it'd be the wrong way round. If you picked it up and placed it on your chest, it would then be the right way round. Okay, test that out. So arrives at the vena cava to the right atrium, goes through the tricuspid valve, or you can just call it a valve here, goes into the right ventricle, then it leaves the heart through the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary to do with lungs. So if it's a pulmonary artery, arteries go away from the heart. So we can use these terms to help us understand where a blood vessel is going to go. So if it's pulmonary heart, it's going a pulmonary artery. It's going away from the heart because it's an artery, and away to the lungs if it's a pulmonary artery. So this blood vessel will take the blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen and drop off diffuse carbon dioxide. It comes back to the heart through the pulmonary vein. So again, pulmonary to do with the lungs. Veins go into the heart, and you can remember that because you can see the word vein, the word in is in the word vein. So pulmonary vein brings the blood into the heart. It arrives at the left atrium, goes through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle, and leaves through the aorta, which is the main artery. Again, artery taking the blood away from the heart. There's a diagram you might like to print out and label yourself. And let's see if we can... Oh, you might spend more time looking at that. Nothing's happening there. These don't seem to be working. So here's the respiratory system. So respiratory system, we obviously breathe in, fill our lungs, and the action takes place at the alveoli, where oxygen diffuses out of the air we breathe in into the blood vessels that are covering the alveoli, and carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveoli and is breathed out. So the air comes in through the nasal cavity, goes through the pharynx, which is another word for your throat, through the larynx, which is the voice box, through the trachea, which if you feel under your throat, you'll feel the ridges of cartilage within the trachea, which help to keep it open. It then goes through the bronchi, where the trachea branches left and right, and then it branches again into the bronchioles and gets smaller and smaller still until the ends of these tubes result in the alveoli, which is where the action takes place, where gases are exchanged. So this nicely shows those alveoli with the capillary network surrounding them where gases diffuse. Also shows the position of the heart quite nicely. And here's the alveoli again, just showing the diffusion of carbon dioxide into the alveoli and the diffusion of oxygen out of the alveoli into those capillaries.